Hello there summoners, how are you today, and welcome to my top 10 Season 5 mid lane champions video. As I mentioned in my update video, I'll be changing my monthly top 10 format to this Season 5 form because this lets me focus better on a certain lane. Plus, after I've covered up all the lanes and jungle for Season 5, I can focus better on LoL and other videos as well. Also, please note that these are my opinions and it's totally okay if you think different wise. My name is Hepodix and hope you enjoy the video. Katarina is one of the classic assassins, and even to this day she is driven by an intense killer instinct that keeps her going in the mid lane. What makes Katarina good is her zero cost abilities, very high multi-kill potential and that passive voracity that reduces the cooldown of Kata's abilities by 15 seconds when upon killing or scoring an assist. That being said, she isn't perfect though, as Katarina lacks crowd control as well as she is extremely vulnerable to hard CC spells. And even though back in patch 4.20 Riot increased the Death Lotus cooldown and reduced the base damage, she can still be quite dominant assassin to pick up and play. The early game isn't as easy though as it used to be.
So many noobs.
Akali is a champion that's been on the spot for the whole preseason and the current Season 5, and I honestly can't blame it when she's so powerful, now as she is. Akali focuses on single target bursting, which she can handle well because of Mark of the Assassin that does outstanding damage once triggered. She can also do small AoE with Crescent Slash, escape to a stealth slow zone via Twilight Shroud, and my favorite, Shadow Dance, lets her dash into enemy players and make out those extremely satisfying plays altogether. In the patch 5.2, Akali got Crescent Slash nerf as you can't activate Q's secondary damage anymore, plus Shadow Dance got 100 range nerf too, but I honestly think these were reasonable changes, and despite the backlash, she is still one of the superior assassins out there.
I'll drink you under the table, scrub.
Gragas is most likely the most underrated champion from this list, which is kind of sad because in terms of viability, he's actually quite good. His abilities consist a good mix of CC and damage, including slow from barrel roll and 2 types of knockbacks from body slam and explosive cask. Gragas also has a nice sustain point from his passive Happy Hour and Drunken Rage that also boosts your next auto attack for maximum devastation. But why I really think Gragas has good potential as a mid laner is because Riot deleted Deathfire Grasp from the game, and since it hurted so many assassin type of mages, Gragas can actually match better in terms of burst, and his abilities are just extremely versatile when used correctly. Not too many recent patch notes inside, besides that increased slow for barrel roll, which is nice little CC boost for him. LeBlanc is another assassin who's gone through some major changes in the past, as she can no longer silence or abuse Deathfire Grasp. Still, regardless, her popularity is huge and the players are enjoying the playstyle of LeBlanc because she can still inflict ton of damage in a matter of seconds, plus the tricks you can do with Distortion are fun to execute. LeBlanc's weak point in my opinion is definitely the late game, as you won't be offering that many teamfight tools for your team. Sure, you can still burst someone down, but thinking team-wise, there are better ones for that particular purpose. And lastly, when we take a look at the patch notes, there aren't any huge changes recently, as they already did the big changes back in Season 4, and as for the current state, I think she's just fine. Yasuo is without a doubt a champion that I just can't forget like that, because it's just madness when you feed this guy. There are a couple major factors that makes Yasuo very viable. First of all, Yasuo's abilities have no cost whatsoever, and lane presence is good as you have decent poking, but more importantly you can dash back and forth with Sweeping Blade, which increases your mobility a lot, and with Wind Wall you can deny any projectile type of attack or spell, which can be game breaking when used correctly. Yasuo's passive is also very worthy as you can double your crit chance, though the crit damage is reduced some, and it also grants you a shield when you've reached the maximum flow, which is another good sustain point to have. As there are only small changes in the patch history, I can conclude that Yasuo can be extremely useful champion to play, but requires trial and error, and he can be sometimes very frustrating if your team doesn't provide any extra airborne abilities for your ultimate. Syndra is the Dark Sovereign who's known for high burst damage output and moderate crowd control combined. Syndra's whole kit is based around her dark spheres as she can control them and do various mechanics and tricks. That being said, it's quite essential that you aim the spheres in order to succeed well, or otherwise you're dead for good. Also, Syndra doesn't have any escape ability, which makes her more vulnerable for ganks, but she will be too overpowered anyways with mobility spell included to the mix. Patch 5.1 nerfed the Dark Sphere's base damage in early ranks, so she won't be that dominant in early levels anymore.
Forbidden Shadow wins.
Zed is one of the prime assassins in League as he still continues to dominate squishes across the rift. Zed's kit is designed to burst someone down really fast, usually starting first with Death Mark and then applying Razor Shuriken, Shadow Slash, couple auto attacks and boom! Also, his passive Contempt for the Weak helps a lot by killing someone, as you gain bonus magic damage when you auto attack targets below 50% health. This all sounds very neat, but add Living Shadows to the mix, where you gain even more attack damage and nice dash to the mix truly compilates how terrifying and mobile monster Zed is. Riot however has been aware of this great dominance, so they dropped some attack speed values down back in 5.2 patch, which is totally understandable in my opinion.
They come apart so easily.
Orianna is the Lady of Clockwork, who can do unique ball tricks to maneuver through. Her whole kit is based on where the ball is and how do you command it as you control it with Command Attack. Command Dissonance creates an electric pulse that speeds up allies and slows enemies while dealing damage. Command Protect is the sustain tool that lets you shield yourself or one of your allies, and Command Shockwave is the true game breaker as it flings enemies towards the ball and does massive damage. What makes Orianna very viable is how you can variate your playstyle with your ball, either going full aggressive yourself, or just cover up your allies who's getting caught or initiating and let them enjoy the ball benefits. With some trial and error put together, Orianna can be very successful champion to play, and there are only texture changes in the latest patches, so swag swag.
Should I make your pulse rise?
Ori is the legendary 9-tailed fox, whose popularity has been skyrocketing amongst players, even despite the big changes that came in the recent patches. There are damage, mana cost and range changes mostly for her in 5.3 and 5.2 patches, but the most important changes is her Orb of Deception that grants you now massive movement speed when the orb is traveling. Also, Charm no longer has 20% damage amplifier that really hurted her burst, and that is most likely removed due to Rip of Deathfire Grasp. So, patch notes aside, Ori is still quite the fox who can inflict good burst output even without that special boost, and she has also awesome mobility granted with Spirit Rush that lets you dash back and forth up to 3 times. But before we take a look at the number 1 entry in this list, let's first quickly see a couple honorable middle lane mentions. First of all, Anivia is the bird with high skill cap but provides excellent tools for your team and does enormous damage when going all out successfully. Same kind of deal goes with Azir, as his abilities are somewhat tricky to execute, but can provide good tools for your team, like that wall and passive turret for example are quite nice. Cassiopeia got recently more popular because due to her passive changes mostly, and I can't blame it as you can do insane burst damage when you get to stack that passive and rank up those spells to the max. Kassadin is also quite a decent pickup, even without silence, who can inflict good burst damage and travel back and forth using Riftwalk. Veigar is a good champion in terms of damage and crowd control, but he can turn out to be very situational pick, as you don't want to pick him against attack damage based champion or someone who doesn't let you farm early. And lastly, Seraph is nice high range mage who can exceed greater damage from higher distances, but is vulnerable to hard pressure and CC.
Not interested.
Fizz is in my opinion the cherry on top of the cake for Season 5, and there are several reasons for that. First of all, the patch notes 5.2 and 5.1 show here changes where Urchin Strike is nerfed and Seastone Trident no longer applies healing reduction or damage over time. But those aside, LoL Wiki forgot to paste the most important change during 5.2 patch, so here is the separate line. Chum the Waters now grants you 20% damage amplifier whoever is tagged, which is just insane to have any sort of amplifier after the removal of DFG. Also, when you compensate this buff and those nerfs together, it's not that big of nerf anyways. No healer reduction? Well, how about Ignite or Moral Nomicon? Overall, I know patches will going to adjust most likely every champion in this list,